So Brian made a little boo-boo the other day. Let me show you what I did. You guys remember these? The old Vex 8s I got in my truck here. They've been holding up very well and they sound amazing. However, I made a little mistake. Actually, we could blame me, but I'm gonna blame the steering wheel controls. So let me show you what happened. So you've got steering wheel controls hooked up to the radio here, right? Now in the back, you've got a volume up and a volume down button. And I was just, I wasn't riding around. I was just in my truck one day and I hit the volume up button and I kind of walked away. I was like maybe standing about right here and I realized once I hit that volume up button, the volume kept going up. It's almost like the button was stuck or something. So it went past the clipping mark. Now these Pioneer radios, they sound amazing, but usually the last 2 volume clicks, I think it's like near 38, 39 on this particular radio, they introduced clipping and it went all the way to 40, I think is the number. Anyway, I didn't catch it in time and my speaker is now blown. Now it's not completely blown, it's intermittent, which means something's up with it. And I'm pretty sure it was when that happened that it got messed up. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this bad boy out, take it out, and we're gonna recone it. We actually make recone kits for the Vex speakers. It's pretty much like reconing a subwoofer. So let's go check it out. First, I gotta get that bad boy out of there. We're gonna head on over to my office. So there's the speaker. Now I need to diagnose and see what actually happened. I have a feeling the coil's blown, honestly. We're gonna check the tinsel lead, because usually when a speaker blows, especially when wired in parallel, this negative tinsel lead will burn up close to the inside of the coil, the cone right there. So we'll take a look at that and see what it looks like. Now, like I said, I'm pretty sure this speaker is blown or partially blown. I'm gonna go ahead and meter it out. I've got a meter here. We're gonna check the impedance of it. Like I said, it would play intermittent, so I'm kind of curious as to what's really going on with this speaker. We have recone kits. I'm gonna recone it anyway. Obviously something's messed up, but it doesn't hurt to check it out and see what's really happening. So I'm gonna check it on the meter and see what it reads, and let's take a look. All right, so I'm gonna get the meter turned on. I'm gonna set it to this 200 ohms because that's the lowest mark on this particular one. Right now, there's obviously nothing going on. Just touch our leads together here and see what it shows, because most of the time these are off by a little bit. Nice, this one's not that bad, off by 0.1, so not bad at all. Let's go ahead and put it in the speaker and see what we get here. Okay, so it's reading the 4 ohms. So usually when you push on a speaker, it will go crazy, but you see how it's doing OL there for a minute? Open, it's an open circuit every once in a while, which leads me to believe that the tinsel leads have broken apart. They probably burned up right where they meet the cone, and every once in a while that opens up and creates a circuit and a non-circuit, open circuit, closed circuit. So I bet you that's what's happening. Watch. See that OL every once in a while? Now usually when you push on a cone, you'll see the numbers jump all over the place, but it should never do open circuit. And now it is. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this open and see what we find. No need to be gentle here, just go for it. There's that. I guess I'll go ahead and cut this. It's kind of hard to get inside. Well, never mind. I'll just do that. There we go. I'm so used to cutting subwoofers. You can't just go like that to a cone on a sub. It doesn't just fold over that easy. I know this hurts some of your feelings. I know. Sorry, guys. We do this so much here that you become accustomed to it. All right, now that I got the cone ripped up and the spider, I can pull the whole thing out. Let's take a look at the coil. Now, the coil right here, which is where the lead comes down, it looks a little funny, and there's kind of a bulge right there, as if maybe it got too hot. This is a Kapton former, by the way, and usually these don't burn up, so it's, you know, for instance, a subwoofer is going to have, usually it's an aluminum former, and you can see where it gets hot and it bubbles up. These formers don't do that. So this looks a little discolored. There's some discoloration right here, which might be, and like I said, it happens right where it meets the cone. I'm not seeing anything real bad, but I think right here is where, because there's discoloration, like it's burnt. It looks a little funny right there. And I bet you there's an open lead situation going on right there, or it could be somewhere within this mark right here. It's kind of hard to tell. Subwoofers are a whole lot easier to tell where all this happened. Speakers like this, where everything's so much smaller, it's hard to tell, but obviously something's up with this, and we need to go ahead and replace it. So the next step here is I'm going to go ahead and tape this gap up, and then I'm going to sand the spider landing, and I need to figure out if I need to keep this foam or if I have a replacement, because the Recone kits, I don't know if they come with them. So I think I'm going to open up a Recone kit first and see what it comes with. That way I know what I can and cannot replace on this subwoofer, or speaker I mean. So here are the Recone kits. Now most of the Recone kits we make in-house. These we do not. We actually have the manufacturer that makes our speakers make this Recone kit for us. Cool thing is they come with a shiv. So let's open one up. I've actually never opened one of these up. I've never done one of these, so we're gonna learn together how this goes. All right, so here's the packaging. Get that out of the way. All right. Take the foam out. Okay, so we have the Recone kit. Oh, we do have the foam. Look at that. Perfect. So I can cut that foam up and not have to worry about it and set a fresh set of foam down. So here's the kit. It's a little bit out of shape, but once we glue it in place, it'll be just fine. If we look right here, it's hard to see on a camera. Actually, let's see if we can put these together here. Mine versus the other one, it's still hard to see on the camera. This one is really discolored and is kind of bubbled right in here. This is the fresh one, it's not. That means that's probably what happened. So now that we know what comes in the Recone kit, I forgot to mention this. Let's see, it does come with a new dust cap. Everything's carbon fiber, and it's actually real carbon fiber. It's not laid over plastic or poly. It's true carbon fiber. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and sand that bad boy down. Now that we know what we're working with, we can get working on it. Before we get to sanding, I noticed something. Here's the Recone kit. If you look, it comes with leads that are fairly long. Now, that's all fine and dandy. It does not come with the ring terminal, See how this ring terminal, it's soldered onto that lead, and it goes to this nut and bolt situation here for the terminal. You're gonna have to desolder this, open it up, and resolder a new one, unless you have a ring terminal that you have laying around. Any ring terminal will be fine. The thing is you want to make sure, and I'm gonna have to figure this out myself too. This only needs to be so long. There's a lot of extra here, so we're gonna have to figure out how long it needs to be. Let's see. Here's the original Recone kit. I just cut it right at that seam for the spider, and it's about that long, so probably about an inch or two, some change. And this folds over and goes to the lead right there. So I've got some ring terminals here for other speakers, and I think I'm just going to use that, solder them on here. But first, I'm going to go ahead and sand this bad boy down. So we are in what we call the prep room here at Sundown Audio. This is where the preppers sand down the frames and get them ready for the builders. And as you can see, this is the sanding station, so that's where I'm going to go ahead and sand this bad boy down. I got to put some tape in that gap first before I go ahead and sand these landings. But check it out. Oh, by the way, look at these bad boys. My goodness. These are SDDN motors, and folks, there was only it's either 400 or 500 of these made, and they're all sold already. And anybody who has a pre-order of these are coming out soon. Just wait. They are massive woofers. So we'll go ahead and get this prepped and ready and sand those landings down. All right, so I got my speaker on my Lazy Susan. Now again, you don't have to have a Lazy Susan when you do this. It just makes it easier. We actually sell Lazy Susans. They're like 30, 40 bucks. So if it's something that you plan on doing pretty often, reconing woofers, then go ahead and do this. We're going to go ahead and lay the tape down. Tape is just to keep the junk out of the gap. Usually only takes about 3 pieces for something like this. Doesn't really matter what tape you use, you're just trying to keep the junk from getting inside the gap. And it doesn't have to look pretty. Alright, so the gap's taped up. We're going to go ahead and do the surround landing first, and then the spider landing. Now I have a grinder here. I think this is a 40 grit on this bad boy, so it doesn't really matter what you have, as long as you got something where you can take down the glue and paint to the bare metal on each side. That's good enough. You don't want to go too deep, so make sure that when you're sanding, you're not going hard on it. You don't want to create any divots, so try to keep it as smooth and level as possible. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so I just did the surround landing, and now I'm going to do the spider landing. Be careful, there is a neo cap with a aluminum cap on top of this pole piece here. You want to put your grinder on an angle, that way you don't nick that up. I'll try my best to do it. It is a pretty tight spot, so let's try that out. Cool, so that's all ready. I just need to blow this off, get it all cleaned up. There's some junk up in here I need to get out. And next I will be working on these leads right here. These are 7mm nuts, so you'll have to have a socket, take those off. And I'm gonna redo the ring terminals that are on these. I'm just gonna do it off camera. It's really not that hard. Just find your ring terminal, crimp it, and or solder it however you need. I'm out here working on a Saturday, and these fantastic folks are also working on some stuff. It goes. Here, Jerry. Clip that bad boy on your shirt there. That way folks can hear you.
Oh.
What are you working on?
Currently getting the excess power charger hooked up to the limitless battery so that we can get some accurate testing done.
Hell yeah. What is this thing, by the way? This is ridiculous.
It started life as one of those, actually. And inside of here we have a 4th order enclosure with 4 UV1 12s.
See if I can get
D2s wired up on.
Need some light. I can't see anything.
Currently wired up on a Salt 12.
Is this for fun, or are you going to compete with this? What's going on with this thing?
This is predominantly for my son. He shows a lot of interest in wanting to compete, and this gave us the opportunity to do that. So basically, I asked him if he wanted to do SPL or music. Of course, being complicated, he said he wanted to do both. So we built something that would do both.
And that's a true bass head, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, gotta have both.
My kids don't give a damn about speakers, honestly. My youngest is 12, my son, he's like, whatever. So, cool. Well, Jerry, where can people find you?
They can find me at Sundown Tech Support on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
I see the majority of your posts are TikTok, right?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Cool. Well, let's get back to doing that speaker. All right, so I got the new leads, or the new ring terminals soldered onto the leads. Check this out. It was kind of a pain in the butt. And these are some weird ones we had kicking around here that we don't use for anything, but they work perfect for this because they have a 90-degree bend in them, and you can put them kind of like inside out, just like the original ones were. Now, in order for me to do that, I had to remove the terminals. Now, if you have to remove the terminals, check this out. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. But if you look right here, there's a piece that comes up through this hole, and there's a flat piece. The piece that comes up through is on the bottom, the flat piece is on the top. So if you ever have to take these off, that's the order in which they go. Notch on the bottom, flat on the top, then you have then your ring terminal goes on top of the frame piece right here. Then you put this piece on, then your lock washer, then your nut. And again, that's a 7mm nut right there. So I can't put these on until I drop that in. So I'm gonna have to find some small tools to get in there and tighten that nut up when I'm ready. So now it's time. I'm actually gonna go ahead and dry fit this in. So they come with the shim. We're gonna make sure that fits good in place. You don't want to set a Recone kit in and it not be correct. So always test fit it first. These you have to be a little careful with. You have to bring your leads down through this hole. Sometimes it's good to have a pick tool so you can move it out of the way. I keep pushing it in with my fingers. It's a bit of a tight spot, so there we go. And then we're going to push that down, line it up, make sure it all works. Next, let's talk about the glue that we're going to use. There's a bunch of different glues you can use. I'm not going to use CA glue on this. The reason being is CA glue gives you very little time to work with it. This being in tight confined areas, and I've never done one of these before, I'm going to use a 5-minute epoxy. It's a 2-part epoxy. We have our own branded one here at Sundown Audio that we do not give out. We do not give out the actual company that makes it for us. I'm going to suggest you use a Loctite 5-minute epoxy. Works great. We do sell these epoxy guns, by the way. I think they're around the $15 to $20 mark. Again, if you are going to be reconing very often, you want to get yourself one of these. You want one that has a mixing tube. I swear if you get the ones that where you have to mix it yourself, it is just a real pain in the butt to do. Then you have to try to get it in all the little areas, and it's not fun. Use the one that has a mixing tube. It makes life so much easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and purge my tube here. That way I know it's mixed well. All right. We've got 5 minutes to work with that. We'll set it down. And then next, I'm going to go ahead and get some alcohol. I've got some isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this up and make sure it's clean before I lay my glue down. So I'm putting some alcohol on my rag, and I'm going to go ahead and wipe this area down really good. You do both the spider landing and the surround landing. Okay. Make sure it's clean. See all that junk that came off? No good. And if you're going to be quick about things, you can dry it off as well. So you can either put your shim in first, or you can take your shim and put it slightly in the Recone kit and it will push itself down. Actually, what I'm going to do is push it all the way through. It's hard to show, it's such a tight angle. I'm going to bring it up like this. That way I know when I push it down, that spider is going to sit on that landing, and then the shim will push down all the way. Now it's time to set my glue. I'm not going to put too much on, just enough. Even that's probably too much, but I like to overdo it sometimes. This glue is pretty cool because it's self-leveling, so it will push itself in areas that it needs to push itself in and level itself out, and generally look pretty nice when it's done, even though you don't really see this very much when the speaker's playing. So there's that. That's all the glue we're going to use for the spider, and we're just doing the spider first. Next, I'm going to take my Recone kit. I have to put these terminals through the hole first, like so. I'm going to move them out of the way. Then I'm going to shove this down. Make sure everything is centered first. Give it a little twist so it hits that glue, and glue goes where it needs. And then if you look right here, I've got my leads centered where the terminals go. I'm going to push this all the way down. Now that I know it's where it needs to be, I'm going to push the shim all the way down until it hits. And you want to, it's hard to see through video, I know I don't have enough lighting in here, but you want to make sure your spider is all the way on the landing. It cannot be uneven. It needs to be even all the way through. You can push it with your finger, make sure everything's good to go, and you're going to wait 5 minutes for that to dry before you do anything else, or however long your glue needs to dry. This may take a couple days if you're using really long drying glue. So we'll go ahead and let that sit, and we'll be right back. So before we get into doing anything with the surround up here, I'm going to go ahead and get the terminals in there. Actually, that side, there we go. There's your terminals. Well, terminals go here, and again, there is an order in which these different pieces go in. There's a bottom, a top. So this piece in the frame goes through this part right here. It is very small of an area, hard to work with. You will need a small socket or an adjustable or something to get this nut. Again, it's 7 millimeters. You're gonna need something small to get that tightened. I'm gonna go ahead and finger tight this for now, and then off camera I'll go ahead and get a smaller socket, because I have to find it. And we'll go ahead and get that tight. Again, this is my first time ever reconing a Vex Series speaker, so you are learning with me. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these pieces off. Remember, your positive is always on the left side. Negative's always on the right when you're looking straight at it. Positive left, negative right. So we're going to take our lead, we're going to shove this up here. And one thing you could do, and this is kind of hard to do, it's really hard to do with the camera in the way. I'm going to go ahead and push that down and shove a pick tool right there. Having my pick tool there will help me guide it however I need to. So it'll sit like that. I'm then going to put this other plastic piece in. You have to have plastic pieces on both sides of the frame, otherwise your terminal will short out on the frame. We definitely don't want that. Then we're going to take that lead with the ring terminal and put it on there. It actually needs to be backwards. Let me do this real quick. It's kind of hard to do. Flip it around like so. And I'll put it on an angle for now so I could put the nut on. This is not fun to do, guys. That's why we don't make our subwoofers like this anymore. There goes my lock washer. Now I'm going to go put my nut on. Okay. And it should look like, let me move this out of the way, it should look something like that when it's all said and done. And you want to have your pick tool in this hole right here when you are tightening that 7mm nut. This gives you that leverage to put some more torque on that nut. Otherwise, the terminal will turn all over the place and it won't be straight. Again, I'm going to finger tight that for now, and then later on I'll go ahead and tighten that up with a tool. So I grabbed my light, that way you guys can see better. At this stage, we're going to go ahead and work on the surround. Now take note here. This edge of this surround does not go all the way to the edge of this inner edge of the surround landing. It stops right where the holes are right there. These foam pieces are what fit right here, like so, and they go all the way around it. So when I set my glue down for this surround, I'm going to set it on the whole piece. That way it gets not just the edges of the surround, but it also glues the foam pieces down as well. I'm going to use the same glue I was using earlier, the two-part epoxy. That way I have some time to work with this. Before I do that, I need to make room to get my glue in there. So I'm going to go ahead and take this cone with my fingers. I'm going to push up as best as I can. I'm going to push this shim down. While I'm doing that, it's going to lift up as best as it can. It's it's not easy, but if you look, there's a nice edge right there. I can take my finger or a pick tool. I can lift up here enough to set my glue down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then I'm going to clamp everything in place once I put my foam down. And I have 8 of these clamps. You can do 4 up to 8. Well, you can do as many as you want as you can fit on there, but I feel 8 is the best number. These are real cheap. I got them at Harbor Freight. I'm going to take my finger or a pick tool and I'm going to lift up on this, and we're going to put a generous amount of glue. You don't have to put too much, but the more the merrier. But remember, it will start to run down if you put too much. Just got to be careful. You want to make sure you get all of the surfaces that everything is going to touch. And remember, when this gets pushed down, it's going to sandwich and probably push out a lot of the glue, and a lot of it's going to run down. But it's, again, the more the merrier. You don't want to have too little. Take your time. You've got 5 minutes to work with this stuff if you're using a 5-minute epoxy, or however long your glue states that it takes to kick off. Oh, there we go. It's gonna be messy. That's okay. Nobody's gonna see it anyway, right? You can also use E6000 on this if you've got that at home. I would not suggest using CA glue because the accelerant might mess with the surround material. So that looks good. Grab a couple other spots there. There we go. All right. So that's where it needs to be. I'm going to go ahead and push this back down to where it's level again with the landing. Okay. I do see I need some more glue in the edge, so I'm going to do that. Not much, just a little bit here. I want to make sure my foam pieces actually stay where they need to be. Okay, that looks good. It's probably too much, but you know, whatever. All right, this is going to be different. Go ahead and lay my foam pieces down. I've actually never done this before, so we're going to take my time. They only go on one way here, and they lock into each other. So the cool thing is, if you're working with a glue that has some cure time to it, you can position everything how you need, which will give you the time to work with it. Then you can set your clamps down rather than going crazy and trying to do it all really fast. I would never do this with CA glue, by the way. All right, that looks good. Everything's on the edges. Perfect. Now I'm going to lay my clamps. I'm going to put one clamp where they meet. Try to get these locked in where they're supposed to be here. There we go. One clamp where it meets. Right there. Gotta be careful because it looks like even my clamp is a little bit, a little much for it. I'm gonna go around to the other side here. Okay, so I took my clamps off. I'm actually not a fan of that right now. So what's going on is the clamps are pushing so hard on the foam, everything's bowing. So I'm going to go ahead and take my other speaker and I'm going to put it right on top to hold pressure down. And that's not ideal. Honestly, I think the easiest way to do this would be to have some kind of a ring to use, which I'm going to have to do something with this speaker because I can't use this woofer to do the same thing with this one. So some type of ring or something you can use to put an even amount of pressure on the whole thing at one shot. Maybe just do 2 clamps instead of 8 of them. So you can still use the clamps if you want. It may not look good. I'm trying to make a professional video here and it is just not turning out good for me. So when I do this speaker here, I'm going to try something different and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I found something in the guy who does our Recone kits here. This is a ring that he uses for our 8-inch subwoofers when he needs to do something similar to this. It's a similar situation, but this is the correct size. So if you are at a shop and you can make yourself like a little MDF ring or a speaker ring, that would work really well. This particular one is a piece of steel, so it's quite heavy. So when I do the next woofer, I might not even need clamps, but you could, if you're using, for instance, some wood instead of metal, you can go ahead and clamp it in place. Maybe just do 2, one on each side, and that would work really well. Probably a whole lot easier than the mess I was trying to do with all these clamps. Guys, that is just a mess. It's not going to work very well. So anyway, use yourself a ring like this neck when you do it. Put it down like that and you should be good. You want to give it obviously 5 minutes to dry, pull it off, and you're good to go. This came out looking pretty decent. There was a couple little spots where some epoxy came in and hit the surround, but if you catch it in time, you can take a pick tool, like here's a bubble right here. You take a pick tool and before it's all the way dry, and you just pick it out, and there you go. It's good to go. The only thing left on this particular speaker is the dust cap. Before you pull this shim out, you have to make sure all your spider and surround landings are all dry. The glue's all dry and ready to go. If you're using a 5-minute epoxy, you're good. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. Okay, so it's time to lay the dust cap. There are no markings on here as to where the dust cap goes, but we have the old Recone, or the old soft parts. So let's move this out of the way real quick. Take this. Here's the dust cap that comes with the new Recone kit. I'm going to go ahead and measure on this the old speaker, the distance that this dust cap sits from a certain point. About right there, okay? So if I go from inside edge of surround to the cap itself, I get a number, 42.6 millimeters. Doesn't really matter, I'm just gonna keep that there. And then I'm gonna bring this speaker back, put it right here, and I'll do the same thing. I've got a pencil and I'm gonna put a little mark on there. So if we take it right there, now there may be some difference between the original speaker and the Recone kit, but we're just going to do a quick little mark just so we kind of know where it needs to sit. You can do it on 4 corners, so to speak. It's going to put you close to center, okay? And then we're going to sit that dust cap down and center it and see how it looks. And if it looks good, we can put a bigger mark with the pencil and lay some glue down. Okay. So I have my 4 marks. I'm going to put my dust cap down. Try to center it with my marks as best I can. One little trick, you take your finger and tap. A lot of times it will center itself. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and put some weight on it. I'm going to take my pencil and mark where that dust cap goes. And this mark that I'm making not only helps me figure out where the dust cap needs to go when I take it off, but it's going to help me figure out where I need to put my glue. It's hard to see on the camera, but you can see that I do have a pencil mark here. Now this dust cap has a pretty small glue flange, so you gotta be really careful. And there's a good chance I'm about to make a mess because this is the first time I've ever done a dust cap on such a small speaker like this. Well, in a long time. I have done it before, but not this particular speaker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay glue on this line. It's going to drip down a little bit. Then I'm going to lay some glue on this inner edge right here on the inside of the dust cap. I'm not going to put it on what's called the glue flange. I'm actually going to put it on the inside of that flange, because when I flip this upside down, that glue will start to flow downward. And when it flows down, it's going to touch the glue that I already laid down here. They're going to connect, and that will create a good bond for your dust cap. Now the more glue the merrier on this line, but you have to be careful to not put too much on this line. Now often we will tell people to use E6000 for dust caps, but this is such a small cap that if you use E6000, there's a good chance it's going to be a big mess. I'm going to take my time here. All right. Now I'm going to put my glue here on this flange, again on the inside of the flange. And you got to be quick about this because this particular glue runs kind of fast. So I'm just going to set it in place where it looks to be centered. Going to give it a good tap. With this glue, if you see right here, I have a little bit of excess glue. I'm going to hold that cap down, wipe that with my finger. Just gently. That looks pretty good, guys. If I like where the dust cap is and it looks centered, I can go ahead and put a weight on it. Now we use 10-pound weights on subwoofers, but this is a little speaker, so I'm just going to use some solder and sit that right there on top. That should hold that right in place. And that is a finished reconed Vex 8 speaker. Again, once this is dry, I'm going to go ahead and tighten up these terminals with my socket wrench. I just have to find the right size because this is a very small area. But this speaker is done. I need to move over to the other speaker and do that one. Alright, so I'd like to mention that after I made a post on Facebook as to what I was doing, my good friend Dusty Rice actually did one a couple days ago, and he used clothespin hangers to get the surround and the little foam pieces on there. I think that's a much better idea than how I did it, unless you have one of these rings, which not everybody's got a speaker ring sitting around. But I like that idea because, you know, these clamps they have a lot of tension on them. They have a lot of power. I don't exactly know how much, but there's a lot, and as you can see, it was too much. The clothespins are pretty light, they do the job, and I think that was a much better solution than how I did it, unless you have one of those rings. So anyway, the speakers are done. They're drying, they're sitting over there. I'm going to go ahead and get them in the truck. There's no need to watch me put them in there. I do have something cool. Let me show you this. Got these cool speaker grills here from customspeakerpods.com. They sent me these. They have a bunch of different designs. This is the one that I chose. It's like a biohazard sign. I thought it was pretty cool. Check out their website, customspeakerpods.com. They're obviously the guys who made the speaker pods for my truck. You can watch the videos previously and check out how he did that. But we're going to throw these on there. He sent me these months ago. I think it's time for me to actually put them on. And that way people don't kick my speakers in my truck anymore. So next time you see the speakers, they'll be in the truck and these mounted with them. All right, folks, well, it's done. Well, I got the driver's side done. I still got to do the passenger. There's your passenger side right there. I like these really big bolts that Custom Speaker Pods gave me. There's a thing on the back side that I actually epoxied in, so they're real strong. But anyway, let's take a look. There you go. They're in there. They said this one sounds good. I tested it before I did the passenger side. It sounds really good. And here is the grill cover that I got from Custom Speaker Pods. That way nothing can hit the speaker. It's done. I'm happy. It's hot out here. And that is how you recone your Vex Series 8s, and the 10s will be the same way. Thanks for watching, guys.